Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Jane's Fighters Anthology as we continue with the Rushing Quick missions. And today, we will be doing the F-117 Nighthawk. So, let's set ourselves up here. American Chinese, that looks good. So, let's get ourselves set up. Give ourselves an escort. $20,000 feet, 20 miles, and let's give them some J-16 equivalents in the form of the Su-35. Ground target. Let's see here. Honestly, most of these aren't really suited for the for the Nighthawk, so I'm actually going to double our numbers here. Tried this. Alright, and of course all we can really carry is the paveways. Those are 2,000 pounds each. And that's about the heaviest thing we can carry, so I think we're just gonna go ahead with that. Alright, so infrared on, we'll let the F-22s tackle the, I should have said it tonight. Oh well. We'll let the F-22s tackle the hostiles, the Su-35s, J-16s. And they are on it. Wow, they're all going for the same F-22. Oh no! But that's going to be a good chunk of their weapons, I think. Alright, looks like they're hopefully just down to a single Su-35. Looks like a 3-2 split, but I'm sure the F-22s will win.
Attack structure.
Alright, what do we got here? Ground tower. There we go, there's the big boy. There we go. So we dropped our bomb, hopefully our wingmen are also dropping theirs. Looks like we are going to be right on target. Alright, well, 60% damage, so we'll have to come around for another pass, but that's no biggie. Oh, wingman 3 got it. There's a few more bunkers around here. We can take out the bunkers. Yeah, it's just a fire. So we'll take out this bunker. hopefully our wingman can finish up the rest of them. And there's another bunker gone. So if I'm not mistaken, I think all we should have left to clean out is the comm array.
Attack the structure. You're 4 o'clock above.
Which maybe they're already. Oh, there we go.
Disengage.
So actually, we can keep flying across this lake and land there. So, in the meantime, Lockheed F-117A Nighthawk. It was the brief description is it's a twin-engine stealth attack aircraft that was developed by Lockheed's Skunk Works division and operated by the Air Force, and was based on the Have Blue technology demonstrator. Nighthawk was the first operational aircraft to be designed around stealth technology, with its maiden flight taking place in 1981 at Groom Lake, Nevada, and the aircraft achieved IOC in 1983. Nighthawk was shrouded in secrecy until it was revealed to the public in 1988, and of the 64 built, 59 were production versions, with the other 5 being prototypes. And the F-117 was widely publicized for its role in the Persian Gulf War of '91, and although everyone calls it the stealth fighter, it's strictly a ground attack aircraft. And it also took part in the conflict in Yugoslavia, where one was shot down by a surface-to-air missile, which was the only Nighthawk to be lost in combat, and it was retired in 2008 primarily due to the Raptor achieving operational capability. So, details. In 1964, Peter Ufurntsev, a Soviet mathematician, published a paper titled Method of Edgeways in the Physical Theory of Diffraction in the Journal of the Moscow Institute for Radio Engineering, in which he showed that the strength of the radar return from an object is related to its edge configuration, not its size. The thesis was extending theoretical work published by the German physicist Arnold Sommerfeld. Peter demonstrated that he could calculate the radar cross-section across a winged surface and along its edge. The obvious and logical conclusion was that even a large aircraft could reduce its radar signature by exploiting this principle. However, the resulting design would make the aircraft aerodynamically unstable, and the state of computer technology in the early 1960s could not provide the kinds of flight computers which would later allow aircraft such as the F-117 and B-2 Spirit to stay airborne. By the 1970s, when Lockheed analyst Dennis Overholser found Peter's paper, computers and software had advanced significantly, and the stage was set for the development of a stealth aircraft. Just want to make sure we're on course here. There we go. And the F-117 was born after combat experience in the Vietnam War showed that increasingly sophisticated Soviet surface-to-air missiles were capable of easily downing heavy bombers. And this started out as a black project that was so secret that few in the Pentagon even knew until it was publicly revealed. And the project began in 1975 with a model called the Hopeless Diamond, which I guess is a wordplay on the Hope Diamond, which I guess is some famous piece of jewelry. Following year, DARPA issued Lockheed Skunk Works a contract to build and test 2 stealth strike fighters under the codename Have Blue. These subscale aircraft incorporated jet engines of the Northrop T-38A, fly-by-wire systems of the F-16, landing gear of the A-10, and the environmental systems of the C-130, so they were a bit of a Franken aircraft. By bringing together existing technology and components, Lockheed built 2 demonstrators under budget at $35 million for both aircraft and in record time. The maiden flight of the demonstrators occurred on the 1st of December 1977, although both aircraft were lost during the demonstration program. Test data proved positive. The success of Half Blue led the government to increase funding for stealth technology. Much of that increase was allocated towards the production of an operational stealth aircraft, the Lockheed F-117A, under the codename Senior Trend.
Clear to land. Wind at 20 knots.
Alright, we are coming in nice and fast. Excellent. So, Senior Trend. The decision to produce the F-117A was made on the 1st of November of 1978. And the contract was awarded to Lockheed Advanced Development Projects, popularly known as Skunk Works, in Burbank, California. See if we can get onto the taxiway here. Close enough. The program was led by Ben Rich, with Alan Brown as manager of the project, and Rich called on Bill Schrader, a Lockheed mathematician and dense overholster computer scientist, to exploit Peter's work. So he designed a computer program called Echo, which made it possible to design an airplane with flat panels called facets, which were arranged so as to scatter over 99% of radar signal energy, painting an aircraft. And there we go. We are nice and parked. And we just have to wait for a wingman to land. The first YF-117A, serial number 79-10780, made its maiden flight from Groom Lake, Nevada, also known as Area 51, on the 18th of June 1981, only 31 months after the full-scale development decision. The first production F-117A was delivered in 1982, and operational capability was achieved in October of 1983. The 4,450th Tactical Group, stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, were tasked with the operational development of the early F-117, and between 1981 and 1989 they used LTV A-7 Corsair IIs for training to bring all pilots to a common flight training baseline, and later as chase planes for F-117A tests. The F-117 was secret for much of the 1980s. Many news articles discussed what they called a F-19 stealth fighter, and the Tester Corporation produced a very inaccurate scale model. When an F-117 crashed in the Sequoia National Forest in July 1986, killing the pilot and starting a fire, the Air Force established restricted airspace. Armed guards prohibited entry, including firefighters, and a helicopter gunship circled the site. All F-117 debris was replaced with the remains of a F-101A Voodoo crash stored at Area 51. When another fatal crash in October 1987 occurred inside Nellis, the military again provided little information to the press. The Air Force denied the existence of the aircraft until the 10th of November 1988, when Assistant Secretary of Defense J. Daniel Howard displayed a grainy photograph at a Pentagon press conference disproving the many inaccurate rumors about the shape of the F-19. After the announcement, pilots could fly the F-117 during daytime and no longer needed to be associated with the A-7 flying the T-38 supersonic trainer for travel and training instead. In April 1990, 2 F-117 aircraft were flown into Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, arriving during daylight and publicly displayed to a crowd of tens of thousands. 5 full-scale development aircraft were built, designated YF-117A, and the last of 59 production F-117s was delivered on the 3rd of July 1990. As the Air Force has stated, streamlined management by Aeronautical Systems Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, combined breakthrough stealth technology with concurrent development and production to rapidly field the aircraft. The F-117A program demonstrates that a stealth aircraft can be designed for reliability and maintainability. Designation. The operational aircraft was officially designated the F-117A. Most modern U.S. military aircraft use post-1962 designations, in which the F designation is usually an air-to-air fighter, B is usually a bomber, A is usually a ground attack aircraft, etc. The F-117 is primarily an attack aircraft, so its F designation is inconsistent with the DoD system. This is an inconsistency that has been repeatedly employed by the U.S. Air Force with several of its attack aircraft since the late 1950s, including the Republic F-105 Thunder Chief and the General Dynamics F-111 Aardvark. A televised documentary quoted project manager Alan Brown as saying that Robert J. Dixon, a 4-star Air Force general who was the head of Tactical Air Command, felt that the top-notch USAF fighter pilots required to fly the new aircraft were more easily attracted to an aircraft with an F designation for fighter as opposed to a bomber or attack designation. The designation F-117 seems to indicate that it was given an official designation prior to the 1962 U.S. Tri-Service Aircraft Designation System and could be considered numerically to be a part of the earlier Century series of fighters. The assumption prior to the revealing of the aircraft to the public was that it would likely receive the F-19 designation, as that number had not been used. However, there were no other aircraft to receive a 100 series number following the F-111. Soviet fighters obtained by the U.S. via various means under the Constant Peg program were given F-series numbers for their evaluation by U.S. pilots, and with the advent of the Teen series fighters, most often Century series designations. As with other exotic military aircraft types flying in the southern Nevada areas, such as captured fighters, an arbitrary radio call of 117 was assigned. The same radio call had been used by the enigmatic 4477 Test and Evaluation Squadron, also known as Red Hats or Red Eagles, that often had flown expatriated MiG jet fighters in the area, but there was no relationship to the call in the formal F-19 designation then being considered by the Air Force. Apparently, use of the 117 radio call became commonplace, and when Lockheed released its first flight manual, F-117A was the designation printed on the cover. It's also been speculated that the F designation was given to the F-117 in order to confuse Soviet spies and to cause them to be misinformed. When the Air Force first approached Lockheed with the stealth concept, Skunk Works director Kelly Johnson proposed a rounded design. He believed smoothly blended shapes offered the best combination of speed and stealth. However, his assistant Ben Rich showed that faceted angle surfaces would provide significant reduction in radar signature, and the necessary aerodynamic control could be provided with computer units. A May 1975 Skunk Works report, Progress Report Number 2, High Stealth Conceptual Studies, showed the rounded concept that was rejected in favor of the flat-sided approach. The resulting unusual design surprised and puzzled experienced pilots. A Royal Air Force pilot, who flew it as an exchange officer while it was still a secret project, stated that when he first saw a photograph of the F-117, he promptly giggled and thought to himself, "This clearly can't fly." Early stealth aircraft were designed with a focus on minimal radar cross-section rather than aerodynamic performance. Highly stealthy aircraft like the F-117 Nighthawk are aerodynamically unstable in all 3 aircraft principal axes and require constant flight corrections from a fly-by-wire flight system to maintain controlled flight. It is shaped to deflect radar signals and is approximately the size of an F-15 Eagle. The single-seat Nighthawk is powered by two non-afterburning General Electric F-404 turbofan engines. It is air refuelable and features a V-tail. Maximum speed is 623 miles per hour at high altitude, and the max rated climb is 2,820 feet per minute, and service ceiling is around 45,000 feet. Cockpit was quite spacious with ergonomic displays and controls, but the field of view was somewhat obstructed with a large blind spot to the rear, which this game does a pretty good job of simulating. As far as avionics go, it has a quadruple redundant fly-by-wire flight control system. The lower development costs, the avionics, fly-by-wire systems, and other parts were derived from the General Dynamics F-16 Fighting Falcon, McDonnell Douglas FA-18 Hornet, and the McDonnell Douglas F-15E Strike Eagle. Parts were originally described as spares on budgets for these aircraft to keep the F-117 project a secret. The aircraft is equipped with sophisticated navigation and attack systems integrated into a digital avionics suite. It navigates primarily by GPS and high-accuracy inertial navigation. Missions are coordinated by an automated planning system that can automatically perform all aspects of an attack mission, including weapons release. Targets are acquired by a thermal imaging infrared system slaved to a laser rangefinder and laser designator that finds the range and designates targets for laser-guided bombs. The F-117A's split internal bay can carry 5,000 pounds of ordnance. Typical weapons are a pair of GBU-10, GBU-12, or GBU-27 laser-guided bombs, two BLU-109 penetration bombs, or two JDAM bombs. As far as stealth goes, the F-117 has a radar cross-section of about 0.001 meters squared. Among the penalties for stealth aircraft are lower engine thrust due to losses in the inlet and outlet, very low wing aspect ratio, and a high sweep angle, 50 degrees, needed to deflect incoming radar waves to the sides. With these design considerations and no afterburner, the F-117 is limited to subsonic speeds. The F-117A carries no radar, which lowers emissions and cross-section, and whether it carries any radar detection equipment is classified, but I'd say it's a good bet it does carry an RWR. The F-117A's faceted shape resulted from the limitations of the 1970s era computer technology used to calculate its radar cross-section. Later supercomputers made it possible for subsequent aircraft like the B-2 bomber to use curved surfaces while maintaining stealth through the use of far more computational resources to perform the additional calculations. An exhaust plume contributes a significant infrared signature, and the F-117 reduces its IR signature with a non-circular tailpipe to minimize the exhaust cross-sectional volume and maximize the mixing of hot exhaust with cool ambient air. The F-117 lacks afterburners because the hot exhaust would increase the infrared signature, and breaking the sound barrier would produce an obvious sonic boom, as well as surface heating of the aircraft skin, which also results in an increased infrared footprint. As a result, its performance in air combat maneuvering required in a dogfight would never match that of a dedicated fighter aircraft. This was unimportant in the case of this aircraft since it was designed to be a ground attack aircraft. Passive radar, bistatic radar, and especially multi-static radar systems detect some stealth aircraft better than conventional monostatic radars, since first-generation stealth technologies, such as the F-117, reflects energy away from the transmitter's line of sight, effectively increasing the radar cross-section in other directions which the passive radars monitor. Operational history. During the program's early years from 1984 to mid-1992, the F-117A fleet was based at the Tonopah Test Range Airport, Nevada, where it served under the 4450th Tactical Group. Because the F-117 was classified during this time, the unit was officially located at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, and equipped with A-7 Corsair aircraft. All military personnel were... Ash, get out from there. All military personnel were permanently assigned to Nellis Air Force Base, and most personnel and their families lived in Las Vegas. This required commercial air and trucking to transport personnel between Las Vegas and Tonopah each week. The 4450th was absorbed by the 37th Tactical Fighter Wing in 1989. In 1992, the entire fleet was transferred to Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico, under the command of the 49th Fighter Wing. This move also eliminated the Key Air and American Transair contract flights to Napa, which flew 22,000 passenger trips on 300 flights from Nellis to Napa per month. The F-117 reached initial operational capability status in 1983, and the Nighthawk's pilots called themselves bandits. Each of the 558 Air Force pilots who have flown the F-117 has a bandit number, such as Bandit 52, that indicates the sequential order of their first flight in the F-117. Pilots told friends and families that they flew the Northrop F-5 and aggressor squadrons against Tactical Air Command. The F-117 has been used several times in war. Its first mission was during the United States invasion of Panama in 1989. During that invasion, two F-117A Nighthawks dropped 2 bombs on Rio Hato Airfield. During the Gulf War in 1991, the F-117 flew approximately 1,300 sorties and scored direct hits on 1,600 high-value targets in Iraq, over 6,905 flight hours. Leaflet drops on Iraqi forces displayed the F-117 destroying ground targets and warned to escape now and save yourselves. Initial claims of its effectiveness were later found to be overstated. For instance, it was claimed that the F-117 made up 2.5% of coalition tactical aircraft in Iraq when they attacked more than 40% of strategic targets. This ignored the fact that only 229 coalition aircraft could drop and designate laser-guided bombs, of which 36 F-117s represented 15.7%, and only the Air Force had the I-2000 bombs intended for hardened targets, so the F-117 represented 32% of all coalition aircraft that could deliver such bombs. Initial reports of F-117s hitting 80% of their targets were later scaled back to 41 to 60%. On the first night, they failed to hit 40% of their assigned air defense targets, including the Air Defense Operations Center in Baghdad, and 8 such targets remained functional out of 10 that could be assessed. In their Desert Storm white paper, the USAF claimed that the F-117 was the only airplane that the planners dared risk over downtown Baghdad, and that this area was particularly well defended. In fact, most of the air defenses were on the outskirts of the city, and many other aircraft hit targets in the downtown area, with minimal casualties when they attacked at night, like the F-117. This meant they avoided the optically aimed AAA and infrared SAMs, which were the biggest threat to coalition aircraft. The aircraft was operated in secret from Tanapa for almost a decade, but after the Gulf War, the aircraft were moved to Holloman in 1992. However, its integration with the Air Force's non-stealth Iron Jets occurred slowly. As one senior F-117A pilot later said, because of ongoing secrecy, others continued to see the aircraft as none of their business, a standalone system. The F-117A and the men and women of the 49th Fighter Wing were deployed to Southwest Asia on multiple occasions. On their first deployment, with the aid of aerial refueling, pilots flew nonstop from Holloman to Kuwait, a flight of approximately 18.5 hours, a record for single-seat fighters that still stands today. One F-117, Air Force serial number 82-0806, was lost to enemy action. It was down during a mission against the Army of Yugoslavia on the 27th of March 1999 during Operation Allied Force. The aircraft was acquired by a fire control radar at a distance of 13 kilometers and altitude of 8 kilometers. SA-3s were then launched by a Yugoslav version of the Soviet Saev S-125 Neva, also known as the SA-3 Goa, anti-aircraft missile system. Launcher was run by the 3rd Battalion of the 250th Air Defense Missile Brigade under the command of Colonel Zoltan Dani. After the explosion, the aircraft became uncontrollable, forcing the pilot to eject. The pilot was recovered 6 hours later by a United States Air Force pararescue team. Stealth technology from the downed F-117 may have been acquired by Russia and China, but the United States did not destroy the wreckage because its technology was 2 decades old. Some American sources state that a second F-117 was damaged during the same campaign, allegedly on the 30th of April 1999. The aircraft returned to base, but supposedly never flew again. And the theory for how this happened was that the Air Force got lazy and was running the F-117s on the same bombing route every day. They left their bay doors open, and they were, running these raids around the same time every day, and so that's kind of how they knew where and when to look for it, and were able to get off a shot. Later service and retirement. Use of the aircraft as part of Operation Allied Force continued, and was later used in the operation Enduring Freedom in 2001 and Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. The loss in Serbia caused the USAF to create a subsection of their existing weapons school to improve tactics. More training was done with other units, and the F-117 began to participate in red flag exercises. Though advanced for its time, the F-117's stealthy, faceted airframe required a large amount of maintenance and was eventually superseded by streamlined shapes produced with computer-aided design. Other weapon systems began to take on the F-117's roles, such as the F-22 Raptor gaining the ability to drop guided bombs. By 2005, the aircraft was only used for certain missions, such as if a pilot needed to verify that the correct target had been hit or when minimal collateral damage was vital. The Air Force had once planned to retire the F-117 in 2011, but the Program Budget Decision 720, dated 28th of December 2005, proposed retiring it by October 2008 to free up an estimated $1.07 billion to buy more F-22s. PBD 720 called for 10 F-117s to be retired in fiscal year 2007 and the remaining 42 in fiscal year 2008, stating that other Air Force planes and missiles could stealthily deliver precision ordnance, including B-2 Spirit, F-22, and the JASSM. The planned introduction of the multi-role F-35 Lightning II also contributed to the decision. In late 2006, the Air Force closed the F-117 formal training unit and announced the retirement of the F-117. The first 6 aircraft to be retired took their last flight on the 12th of March 2007 after a ceremony at Holloman Air Force Base to commemorate the aircraft's career. Brigadier General David L. Goldfein, commander of the 49th Fighter Wing, said at the ceremony, "With the launch of these great aircraft today, the circle comes to a close. Their service to our nation's defense fulfilled, their mission accomplished, and a job well done. We send them today to their final resting place, a home they are intimately familiar with, their first and only home outside of Holloman." Unlike most other Air Force aircraft that are retired to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base for scrapping or dispersal to museums, most of the F-117s were placed in Type 1000 storage in their original hangars at the Tanapa test range. At Tanapa, their wings were removed and the aircraft are stored in their original climate-controlled hangars. Decommissioning occurred in 8 phases, with the operational aircraft required to Tanapa in 7 waves from the 13th of March 2007 until the 22nd of April 2008. 4 aircraft were kept flying beyond April by the 410th Flight Test Squadron at Palmdale for flight tests. By August, 2 were remaining. Last F-117, Air Force serial number 86-0831, left Palmdale to fly at Tanapa on the 11th of August 2008. With the last aircraft retired, the 410th was inactivated in a ceremony on the 1st of August 2008. 5 aircraft were placed in museums, including the first 4 YF-117As and some remains of the F-117 shut down over Serbia. For 2009, one F-117 had been scrapped, Air Force serial number 79-0784, at the Palmdale Test Facility on the 26th of April 2008. It was the last F-117 at Palmdale and was scrapped to test an effective method for destroying F-117 airframes. Congress had ordered that all F-117s mothballed from 30th September 2006 onwards were to be maintained in a condition that would allow recall of the aircraft to future service as part of the 2007 National Defense Authorization Act. By April 2016, lawmakers appeared ready to remove the requirement that certain F-117 aircraft be maintained in a condition that would allow recall of these aircraft to future service, which would move them from storage to the Aerospace Maintenance and Regeneration Yard in Arizona to be scavenged for hard-to-find parts or completely disassembled. On the 11th of September 2017, it was reported that in accordance with the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2017, signed into law on 23rd December 2016, that the Air Force will remove 4 F-117s every year to fully divest them, a process known as demilitarizing the aircraft. And although officially retired, the F-117 fleet remains intact, and photos show that the aircraft is carefully mothballed. Some aircraft are flown periodically, some being spotted as recently as February of 2019. In March, it was reported that 4 F-117s had been secretly deployed to the Middle East in 2016, and that one had to make an emergency landing at Ali Al Salam, Kuwait, sometime late that year. An F-117 was also photographed in 2019 carrying unit markings previously unassociated with the aircraft. A band on the tail bearing the name Dark Knight, suggesting an either official or unofficial squadron is maintaining the Nighthawks. In July 2019, one Nighthawk was spotted flying above Death Valley, trailing behind a KC-135R straddle taker in a hybrid aggressor screen. And I believe that the Air Force has maintained some of these Nighthawks to serve as aggressor aircraft in order to test our equipment and tactics against stealth aircraft that we now might have to be facing from Russia and China. And there were 2 proposed variants of the Nighthawk. The first was the F-117N Seahawk. The United States Navy tested the F-117 in 1984, but determined it was not suitable for carrier use. In the early 1990s, Lockheed proposed an upgraded carrier-capable variant of the F-117 dubbed the Seahawk to the Navy as an alternative to the canceled AFX program. The unsolicited proposal was received poorly by the DoD, which had little interest in the single-mission capabilities of such an aircraft, particularly as it would take away money from the Joint Advanced Strike Technology program, which evolved into the Joint Strike Fighter. The new aircraft would differ from land-based F-117 in several ways, including the addition of elevators, a bubble canopy, a less sharply swept wing, and reconfigured tail. The M variant would also be re-engined to use General Electric F-414 turbofans instead of the older General Electric F-404s. The aircraft would be optionally fitted with hardpoints, allowing for an additional 8,000 pounds of payload, and a new ground attack radar with air-to-air capability. In that role, the F-117N could carry AMRAAM missiles. And the other variant was the F-117B. After being rebuffed by the Navy, Lockheed submitted an updated proposal that included afterburning capability and a larger emphasis on the F-117N as a multi-mission aircraft rather than just as an attack aircraft. To boost interest, Lockheed also proposed an F-117B land-based variant that shared most of the F-117N capabilities. This variant was proposed to the United States Air Force as well as the Royal Air Force. Several RAF exchange officers flew the F-117 during its service, and 2 RAF pilots formally evaluated the aircraft in 1986 as a reward for British help with the American bombing of Libya that year. And the British declined an offer during the Reagan administration to purchase the aircraft. This renewed F-117N proposal was also known as the AF-117X. Neither the F-117N nor the F-117B were ordered. And that is about it. That is a very exhaustive summary of the F-117. And currently there are 4 on display at various museums around the U.S., mostly museums associated with Air Force bases, and 1 in Serbia, the one that was shot down. So with that, I think we can finish this mission now. And we have successfully completed the quick mission. We destroyed all 11 targets. All of our wingmen are alive and undamaged. We hit those structures pretty hard. Yep, we got good hits on everything. Air defenses weren't able to launch on us, and I believe we only lost 1 F-22 against the J-16s, so they performed fairly well too. So that will conclude today's episode. Stay tuned next time as we continue with the other American aircraft I've neglected for a while. And with that, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next time. We'll see you then.